All right. Woo. Look. I got that wow. Who wants some hands up right now? We got that. Turn it up loud. I know you're wondering how. I got that wow. Here I go, coming. I can't ever stop. I'm a tour de force running. Get me to the top. I don't need an invitation. I'm about to start a celebration. Let me in. Brought a good time plus some friends. Turn it up loud past 10. Turning up the crowd when I hit 'em with the power.
I cannot get enough of that music. Can you guys?
I know.
You see me dance the whole time, right?
Right?
I know. So, listeners, this platform that we record this on, we can all see each other. We called it backstage while that music is going, and all three of us, we are lifting our glass and we are shaking it. That is fabulous music.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. Welcome, everyone, to another episode.
Hello.
Hello. 3 cocktails in. Addicting conversations between friends who've been there, done that, and still want more. Gang's all here, ready for the clinking of the cocktails and some more riveting discussion. So you guys ready?
Totally.
You bet.
Mm-hmm. How was your week
100%.
this week? How's everybody's week? Amy, did you sell any houses?
No, somebody come buy a house from me. I have shown the same house to 4 different people in the last 24 hours.
Oh, well.
One of them's going for it. Going for it. Or I'm going to
One of
track
them
them
will.
down. One of the 2.
Yeah, that's good because we're getting to the end of the month, right? So it's crunch time for you,
Yeah.
right? Is that right? Is that how it works?
We're switching it up a little bit. We have quarterly goals now,
Okay.
which might
All right.
also be because real estate is a little bit seasonal.
Mhm.
And we're kind of in the downtime between, fall. Fall is a little historically slow. So,
Yeah.
but I'm
Okay.
doing all the work I need to do. So I know it's going to pay off. I'm doing what I need to do.
Okay. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you that every week.
You better not,
You
because
don't need that.
I'm not reporting to you.
Right? I know.
It's
Oh
okay.
my gosh. Okay. So we're going to get serious today and talk about a topic that we really feel is relevant to every single age, range, and gender. And that is the fear of risk in career. We have had so many conversations on this topic over the years, haven't we?
We have.
Yes.
And surprisingly, a lot of them recently, again, coming back to perception versus reality of where we're at. So
Yeah, exactly. And again, one of the reasons that we wanted to create this podcast is because the 3 of us have been through it all together. We've been through transition from college to career. We've been through job losses, job changes. And as we've aged, how we look at this topic has changed. So quite certain that this topic will come up for many, many episodes as we together, and we're going to scratch this today, but that's the start. I also think, I just want to say that this topic is really important, and it's one that we wanted to share here because it is so important to understand how fear and risk affect our personal and professional growth. And we really want that type of advice and motivation to be prominent takeaways for our listeners. You guys agree?
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's
All right,
it's all the stuff you never have thought about. I mean, who sits down and thinks, "Oh, I'd like to talk about fear and risk at work," but it is something we're faced with almost daily.
Yes, and people should be talking about it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's okay to talk about it, and it's really nice when you have that trusted group of people that you can talk about it with.
agreed.
So let's get at it. Let's start. I think the best place to start, let's tell our listeners, give our listeners an idea of what our career paths have been. Where did we start? Where are we now? just really briefly, but I think that's going to help as we then further the conversation. Amy, why don't you start?
Okay. So I graduated from college with a degree in business management and history. And like every good child of the 80s, I totally pushed aside the one part that I loved, which was history, and went and got myself a good job. And if you're listening, I'm using the finger bunnies on that, a good job. I sold commercial office furniture. So that's business to business. It would be back then cubicles, office desks, chairs, things like that. I did that until I had baby number two, 18 months after I had baby number one. And then I did the unthinkable. I quit my job and I stayed home, which nearly gave my mother a heart attack that I had wasted my college education by staying at home. But I stayed at home for till the youngest was maybe 6. Took an entrepreneurial type job where I went into a family's home, 2 doctors, and I cooked for them 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Cooked for them, kept their pantry going. I did that for 14 years. They are still very dear friends of mine. Love them greatly. It was a perfect job at that time period. I then moved on to being a part time social media coordinator, and that's kind of a funny little story that we can get to later. Then I was poached, approached, coerced, talked into, uh, been granted the opportunity to sell real estate, first in the resale used market, and then most recently at this large national new construction builder. So that's my life in a nutshell.
All right. Good. Thank you. Stacey.
Okay. Well, I had absolutely no plan. Went to college to be either a banker, maybe in insurance. You know, I was told I should have gotten an accounting degree, but I didn't. That didn't sound very interesting to me.
Who told you?
Um,
Who told you that?
Early on, like in my 20s, I did several different things, nothing very permanent. But for the last 30 years, I've been, I'll describe it as in the ag industry. And for the last 30 years, I've only worked for 2 companies. I think that's, you know, unusual.
Amazing.
What was that?
Amazing.
Amazing, but unusual. I think people, company hop, and certainly within the last, I think, 10 years, probably. I started at the lowliest of the low job and just worked my way up, switched jobs 18 years. So the company I work for today, I've worked for 18 years. Total in that 30 years, I've had 7 different positions. So, just did a lot of different things that kind of helped me get the next position. I wouldn't say, like I said, I had no plan, had no idea what I really wanted to do. A lot of opportunities, honestly, fell in my lap. Somebody leaves, somebody noticed me. Hey, how about you do this? And, talk about, risk versus, you have no idea when someone approaches you, to try something different and new, whether that's really what you want to do or whether you're capable of doing it. You always have this stuff in your mind. But of course, you can do whatever you put your mind to. That's what I always figure. So, like I said, worked my way up through 7 different things to where I am now, where I manage a very small team.
Great. Okay. So my degree was speech and communications. And after I graduated, I really didn't have much of an idea of what I wanted to do. And I mean, this, so it was in 1989. I would literally wait for the newspaper to come out so that I could look at the job listings. Do you guys remember this?
Oh, yeah. And the Sunday paper was the big one.
Yes,
they had a
the
whole
Sunday
section.
paper. Yep.
Whole section.
Yep. So it would come, I'd open it up. I would actually cut the ones out that I was interested in. Anyway, so after a job search, I landed a job with a global company. It was in um, employment services. And at the time, I thought I wanted to go into human resources. So I was with that corporation for 2 years. It was a really, really good first job. It taught me that I did not want to go into human resources. So, I made a change from there. I went to Prudential Securities and I was a broker's assistant. I did that for about 5 years. And it was in that job that I decided I wanted to go into sales because I was basically a sales assistant to these salespeople. And I was like, I want to do that job because it seemed like that would be the best way for me to have the most control over my success or failure. So I went looking for a sales job and I found a company that I worked for 7.5 years. And it was specifically in the marketing industry. So that's what sent me down that path. So I was there for 7.5 years. I got the itch and I'm like, oh, I need to do something else now. I went to another agency for 2 years. I went to another agency for 2 years. I went to Capsule for 10, and then I made another move, and then the pandemic. So I made several moves in there for very specific reasons. This is good that we set the stage here because we all have three very different paths that we've taken since college.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say that even though you and I have very different, and Stacey, I mean, all three of us obviously have different, there is a little bit of a common theme in that for some reason we want control of our own destiny. We want to, because when I talked about office furniture, selling office furniture, I too started as a sales assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was handling all the paperwork and I was dealing with the crabby clients and I was doing all sorts of stuff. And I kind of woke up one day, I'm like, wait a minute. All I'm not doing is getting the sale and the paycheck. So maybe I need to get into sales. So yeah, common theme there. We kind of want to be, we like to be in charge.
Yes.
Have some autonomy over what we're doing.
Yeah. So what's interesting here, and Stacey, you touched on it. You've worked for two companies. And if you think about our parents' generation, our parents' generation was probably the last one that was the generation that you went to one job and you maybe had two. But a lot of people worked for one company their entire life. That has really changed. It's more normal now to move around.
And I was going to say, a lot of them did retire. They worked at that company to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And there were benefits, there were pensions, and retirement age was 55, 60, 65, which my oldest daughter is working in a very large corporation. And she says there are two people in the workforce, two types. There are people that are waiting to retire, and there are people who are her age, that they call it greening of the department. They're bringing in the green to replace,
Really?
Yeah, kind of interesting.
And she knows that. So there's conversation there within the culture that she is aware of this.
The person hiring her talked to her about it, and kind of letting her know that there are a lot of seasoned, let's say old, you can't say old in HR, but there were a lot of people very, very experienced people. And then they had a crop of people who were fairly new to the position. And it's just one of the delights of being a mom of adult children, I have found, is listening to their experiences in work, which is going to come up also in part of this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
How they approach it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a true statement that I think younger people, and I don't know if it's a courage thing, but they seem to leave jobs easier and move to something, something else, easier than people our age, I think, a lot of the time. I think by the time you're our age, it's hard to maybe do that,
Well, the older you get, I think the scarier it gets,
Right.
for one thing. But yeah, I would agree. I think that it does seem, and maybe this is just a perception. We should ask a
Right.
millennial or a Gen Z. It seems that you don't have that. It seems easier for you to put in a year and say, "Yeah, this isn't it for me. I'm gonna move on." And maybe that's something that we should have done.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
just from talking to the oldest, who is 29 and at her third company and probably her fourth position, what and they just bought their first house at 28. So think about that too, in comparison to how we were at 28, married, had one child, had a house. What she is telling me is there aren't opportunities to move up in the ranks, and the raises that they get are minimal. So the only way to make more money is to leave that company and go somewhere else.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah, I've heard that.
slightly easier in that they don't have, at this point, most don't have a mortgage. Most are not married. Most don't have children. A lot of work for a while was remote. You did not have to be in the same location. You didn't have to relocate to get a different job. So I think that part plays a little bit. In addition to, they're like, yeah, why am I going to spend my time doing something I don't like it?
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's what I think we all need to emulate is
Mhm.
this. If again, it comes back to that fine thing. Why is fine okay?
Yeah.
Is fine okay?
Right.
The risk, the scariness.
So what do you think, what do you two think are the common fears and obstacles that prevent people from making career changes?
You know, job security. You know what you have, you know. You don't know what leaving to go to another company is. It, you know, is the grass always greener on the other side? I think that's you're comfortable at what you are. You may not like it, but you're at least comfortable. So then
Mhm.
it's scary to go somewhere else. Anytime I've changed, I've taken it as you know, honestly, an attitude adjustment. You know, it's exciting to start doing something different. So,
Mhm.
but at
Um,
the same time, I was always, you know, typically with the same company too. Jumping companies is more scary.
I was talking about somebody in preparation for today, and it really dawned on me that for the longest time, when faced with any sort of risk or change, the first thing that went through my head is, well, what's the worst that could happen? So, what did I do? I sat and made a list of all the things that could go wrong. Maybe not the best way to approach. So, in the last few years, since making all these changes, I've tried to take the approach of, well, what's the best thing that could happen? So, my list, the first list I come up with is all the things that could go really well that I'm hoping to achieve. And I
Mhm.
think that's part of the wanting to take a risk is that you got
Sure.
to switch that mindset because
Mhm.
you're right. I know what I have in this job. I might not like it, but I know what it is.
Mhm.
But to get to that next point of really liking what you do, and Kitty, you know, we say this all the time, we feel you should be excited to go to work.
Mhm.
So how do you switch that thought into, well, it's time. Now, you're right, not only fear of something new, there is a population, there's an age where you do have a lot of expenses, and that job security, the benefits you've already accrued, the days you've already accrued, that matters. Maybe you don't have a support system. Maybe you don't have somebody who can, I don't want to say tide you over, because probably a lot of us don't have somebody to tide us over. But if you want to make that job change, you got to bank some money.
Mhm.
if you're going to
Sure.
go into sales or something like that. But, so I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I think at the root of it, it's that pit in your stomach about, I don't know, I can't predict what it's going to be.
Yeah. I think the
Change.
most courageous people would have to be the ones starting their own company.
Oh, yeah.
That would be hard to know.
Mhm.
You think it'll be super successful, but that's got to be scary.
Yeah.
I even wonder if it isn't the third or fourth year after starting your company, when now you've hired people
Mhm.
and now it's not just your income and your
Yeah.
livelihood, but now
Sure.
people have faith in you and are
Mhm.
trusting you, your vision, the company's mission, and you're not quite there yet. To me, that seems like, maybe the scary part. But there are people that they just thrive in that environment and they want to be
Yeah.
part of a startup. They want
Mhm.
to put their mark on the company. They have great vision.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what do you think, Kitty? I mean, you've moved some jobs.
Yeah. Um, it's, I was always really excited about the next move. And I always made sure that there was a very specific reason for why I was leaving behind what I was leaving behind and what I was looking for in the next. And I made sure I had enough conversations with that future to feel good about it. But you never know. There are a whole lot of things that you can't get from going through the interview process. Even
Right.
if you ask, well, what's the culture like here? What do you think the CEO is going to say?
Yeah.
Right? So you don't know. But I think, yeah. So if I go all the way back, 2 years without really any angst at all, I made that change to Prudential, and I was there for 5 years. And I did make a change in there that I didn't mention here, and I've actually not ever told anyone about.
Ooh,
She's held out on us.
I know.
And this actually has to do with unexpected opportunities, which I think we should also talk about, because every once in a while we are presented with an unexpected opportunity, and then you're like, whoa, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning for this, but oh my gosh, this could be a really good opportunity. And then you've got, the person on the other voice on your shoulder saying, are you kidding? You can't leave. So, right? So I want to talk about unexpected opportunities. So I'll open this topic with my little story.
Good.
Okay. So when I was at Prudential and I was working in a big corporate office building, and every day I would go downstairs, lots of different places to grab lunch. I would grab lunch and I would go sit somewhere in a common space. And there was a guy that clearly officed in the building, and he was a little bit older. He was an older guy. Okay. Are you gonna
Okay.
ask me how old?
Yeah. How
Oh,
old?
oh God, how old was he?
Yeah.
50s,
Your
like 50s.
your
Oh my
age?
God, he was so old.
Your age? Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Because
Did he have a walker?
I was 28. I was 28-ish, something like that. Okay, so and he was kind of creepy. You just get a creepy vibe from this guy. So at one day he came over to me. I was sitting on a bench. I was eating my lunch. He came over to me and he said, "Excuse me, are you a model?" And I burst out laughing. I'm like, "Dude, you've got to get a better pickup than that. I'm 5'4", and I don't look like a model." So, I just said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, I own a video production company here in my building, and we have a hair care client, and I think that you'd be really good in their marketing material. So I'm like, I'm not a model. Thank you very much. And so then I would see him every once in a while, strike up more conversation. And at one point he said, I'm hiring. I need to bring somebody in to learn my business so we can grow. I really wanted to get out of the company I was working. I've already said it. I wanted to get out of the company that I was working for at the time. I was making $30,000 a year. I had an apartment and a car payment. I had no money, right? I mean, that 30 grand doesn't go very far. When you got an apartment, you got a car payment, trying to have some kind of social life. I did it. Long story short, about 6 months later, he had hired maybe 3 or 4 of us. 6 months later, our paychecks bounced.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And we came to find out that he was a criminal.
Oh, why did you never tell us the story before?
I've never told.
Wait a minute.
I've never told anybody this. My
Oh, my.
parents don't know. They're hearing this right
Yeah.
now for the first time.
Yes.
Okay, this is so
Newsflash.
funny. Did anybody see the post that I did on social media where it says bad decisions make good stories?
Yep.
I didn't even know about this one, but it is so true.
Yes.
Okay, I would also like to say the next man that just stops you randomly and says, "Hey, little girl, do you want a job?"
Yeah.
Can you run it by Stacey and I first?
I know.
Can we have a little talk about this?
So it all worked out because
Of course.
here's the thing. I was so young and maybe naive, even though I was never going to put myself into a situation where I
Right.
would be in danger.
Yep.
I was going to work. There were other people at the company. It was nothing like that. But I just jumped. I did it. Something felt right. And even though 6 months later the paycheck bounced and all of a sudden I'm like, shit, how am I going to support myself? I'm not going to tell my parents. I'm not going to ask anybody for money. No, I just have to go get another job. So the company that I mentioned earlier that I had my very first sales job, I got that job specifically because on my resume, I had most recently worked at a video production company. That's what got me the job at Duke Factory, where I was for 7.5 years in a very successful sales position.
Yep.
So thank God I took that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm quite certain the guy went to jail. So yeah, we can maybe talk about that another time.
Google. We can Google him now.
I have Googled him so many times. Yeah. Where is he now?
that's
What
funny.
jail is he in now?
So if I can talk about kind of weird ways to get jobs, is that part of this story?
Sure.
Unexpected opportunities.
Unexpected opportunities. So towards the end of how I ended up getting the cooking job. So my last 3 jobs have been kind of, head scratchers. So I was staying at home. The youngest was going to go to kindergarten. At that time, you had to pay for all-day kindergarten. She was the 3rd child. She was 6 in July. I wanted her to go to all-day kindergarten. At the time, my ex-husband said, yeah, fine, but you have to pay for it. Oh, okay. So I had to find a job. And, I'd been home. I took this gap. I also knew because he had a very kind of demanding work life that for me to jump in anywhere in like a career type of setting wasn't going to work. Because if they were sick, if they're, whatever, it was going to be on me. So I was talking to a friend and I said, she talked about going to these families' house. I said, Robin, what do you do? And she goes, oh, well, I cook for families. I'm like, what? You cook for families? I said, how do you get a gig like that? And she says, do you want one? What? She goes, yeah, I'm going to leave one of these families. You know how to cook, right? I'm like, yeah. Are you kidding? That's when Martha Stewart was huge, when staying at home became an art. I was cooking a lot. I was doing all sorts of really cool food. I'm adventurous when it comes to cooking. I said, yeah, totally. So I had a phone call with them. They wanted to see a resume. I didn't have a damn resume. So guess who was on my resume? Kitty. Our other broad squad, Christine, talked about the literary consortium I was a part of, aka book club. We totally doctored up this thing. And he actually called Christine, checked my references. So that's how I ended up getting that job. Okay. So towards the end of that, I loved working there, but I was feeling this need for something more. I kept saying, I need to use my mind. I need to use my mind. I wanted to do something different. And so I started scrolling online, and I would look at sometimes Indeed or maybe Job Monster, something, Facebook jobs. I don't know. One day I came across an ad on Indeed that was asking for a social media coordinator. And she said, and the ad said, must like crafting, knitting, sewing, quilting, must know how to post, run Facebook and Instagram or something, and listed a couple other things, must have some sales and marketing experience. And I'm like, holy crap, that's everything I do. I love to do all that. Again, it asked for a resume, and I'm like, hell no, I'm not putting another damn resume together after cooking for 14 years. So I found her on Facebook, and I sent her a direct message. And I'm like, you know what? You want somebody to understand social media? I'm going to hit you up that way. So we go and we meet at Caribou. Honest to God, we both have the same black fingernail polish on. We have matching wrists full of jewelry. We both got on an olive green army jacket, and we sat and talked for an hour. And she said, I got to interview one other person because I already set the appointment, but I pretty much feel this is how this is going to go. Work for her, pandemic starts. I get a full-time job with her because her job goes bananas. Okay. I get to where I can only go so far because I'm not family. And I wanted more again because I was making all these changes, had gotten divorced, bought a new house. My realtor that Kitty introduced me to.
Just little changes, those are just little.
Yeah. Sold the house, got it. No. Asked for the divorce, sold the house, bought a new house downtown, got a new job, whatever. My realtor calls me up one day while I'm working. She goes, hey, do you want to meet for coffee tomorrow? I got an idea I want to bounce around. I'm like, okay, you always have good ideas. So I go to coffee, and she talks to me about a job. I thought it was it was for a marketing type job. But as the three of us talked, she's like, no, as we walked to the car, she goes, I think you need to sell. And I thought she was blowing me off. She sent me a text. She goes, no, I don't know that this is quite going to be a match for what you want, but I think you should sell real estate. And I really did think she was blowing me off. So I'm like, haha, didn't really respond. 4 months later, she calls me again. She goes, tomorrow we need to meet for coffee. And she goes, I was serious. Why haven't you contacted me? And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I've thought about selling real estate. So I went back home, made huge lists, met with her again. I started taking the classes, and 3 months later, I had quit my full-time job and jumped into real estate with no paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So once you make that first risky move, the second and the third and the fourth, they all become easier.
Yeah.
But I've never worked for a corporation, although right now I am, but I kind of have my own little world as a realtor. Mm-hmm. I have never put a real resume together. This one I had my first interview, and she said, I need you to come in again. I said, do I need a resume? She goes, yeah, you need a resume. And I drove home the same day going, God dang it. I don't want to make another stinking resume. My last 4 resumes, thank you, Chat GPT.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Boy, if you are our age and you don't know what to say, hit me up. I'll tell you what to feed in, and we'll get you a resume that's stellar. So I've taken things have dropped in my lap. The unexpected has come on. And like you, I asked a lot of questions, And some of them have worked out well. Some of okay, I learned something here that I can take with me to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what you do. You learn you learn a lot, but you take past experiences to move on to the next thing. Honestly, I think some people are perfectly content doing the same thing for a lot of time, years and years, and that's perfectly fine. They must really love it.
Yeah.
But, I think for most of us, after a while, you kind of get, set in and looking for another adventure.
Yeah. How nice to think of it as an adventure
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
chores.
I think that's one way that you can move it from fear and doubt to excitement.
Yeah.
Because, there may be fear and doubt in there.
Oh, there
So
will be. I
there
mean,
will
just
be.
accept it. There will be.
Yeah.
So
Um,
if I can, maybe
mhm.
I'm jumping here, but if you had a piece of advice from what you've learned about these unexpected opportunities, what would be the most important thing you would say to somebody who is no longer content and wants to try something different? Anybody got, like, what was it for you, Kitty?
Um, I think for me, it was just knowing that I wasn't going to just be in one place forever. And there was a path that my life, that my career, everything was going to take. And I do believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people that push that down. Yes, we certainly have a big say in things. We can drive certain things, but I believe everything happens for a reason. Even though that guy was a criminal, that was a move for me, and it worked, and it was right. And to just look at it as like you said, not what if it fails, but what if this is it, meaning a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my little side hustle that I jumped into 2 years ago. When I first looked at that, my initial reaction was, what are my friends going to say? What is everybody going to say about me doing this? What if I start doing it and I get 2 people watching my shows? And I just kept coming back to it and saying, but it looks so fun. It looks so amazing. I want to do it. And I jumped in and I did it, and it's been tremendous.
Yeah.
So
Very tremendous. But and you touched on it. You wanted to do something that you thought looked fun. And
mhm,
if it wouldn't have been so wildly successful, you still would have gained something from it. Don't you think?
yes, absolutely. You learn something from every situation that you're in.
Sure.
Absolutely. Anytime I'm mentoring a young person, I'm always saying to them, think about all of the things that you're learning in this experience. Even when they're crappy situations. I've said this to people that I managed before when we're sitting there looking at each other like, how are we going to deal with this? I say, very interesting situation, isn't this? Look at all that you're learning about this topic, or how to work with, whatever. So
Yep.
I think I just went on a tangent.
Yep.
So
Can I
go ahead.
answer that?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mine is pretty specific. I think if you're in a job, have a manager, if aren't necessarily happy with what you're doing, or if you want to do more, you have to talk to your manager. You have got to have that conversation with your manager,
Mm,
because your manager might see other opportunities for you. And if they're good, they'll send you to something they think you can do, or give you opportunities that you might not have known exist. And so you have to have that career planning discussion with your manager. I think that's very important. They need to know what you're thinking.
So that's interesting, because I think there are a lot of people who would say, I would never trust that person. Not that they don't trust them, but I wouldn't want them to know that I was thinking about leaving.
Well, again, a good manager would help you with your career path. If that's not who you have, then
Would
which
you
I'm
go to
sure
HR?
happens.
Would you go to HR if you don't trust your manager? Do you go to HR and say, I'm looking for more opportunities? I'm looking for something different? I'm asking, I really don't know.
That would be a tough one. You're probably in a tough spot, and more than likely that doesn't happen, but it's possible. You know what I mean? I'm always a proponent on, make yourself noticed, sell yourself, and you do that by, working hard and exceeding expectations. You're not the one that comes in, the third person in the door and the first person out the door. You're the one that does the extra and more, ask for more. I have very few of all the people I've managed, very few ask me, okay, can you give me something else? What can I do? I have a little time. What more can I do? Very few will do that. That's the tip. Be that person.
I love it. That's good advice, Stace. Thank you.
I'm thinking mindset really is kind of what this is all getting back to.
Mm-hmm.
And that to first recognize that you want more or different, and taking a lateral move or a few steps back to get to some place that makes you happy is okay. I mean, I think we get so focused on, this climbing of the ladder, and especially when you mention, what are my friends going to think? What am I going to tell people? But you know what? If it's something that's interesting to you and excites you and you want to go to work and you learn, I just know from taking adult classes as an adult, I nailed those classes because I was interested in them.
Yeah.
I actually loved the learning part of it. It's invigorating. And I'm finding that with this job. I have also decided, and I took a cue from my youngest daughter who had a job, got a very good job. She kept going back and going back and going back and asking for more to do and more to do. And she did go to HR twice and said, I don't have enough to do. And after about 8 months, she said, you know what, Mom, I'm gonna go look for a job somewhere else. And I said, what? Excuse me? You're gonna leave without putting in a year? And that's hard. That was hard for my head. That's not how I'm like, well, how's that gonna look on a resume? Me, who's doctored up resumes forever. And I shouldn't say doctored. Everything on my resume is true. That is true. But when I was unhappy with my first real estate job, I hadn't been there quite a year. And I looked at my youngest who found herself a new job within 2 weeks of deciding to apply for a new job. And I thought, what the hell? I could go do something different. I've learned how to be a realtor. If I don't like this job, I can go be a realtor again. I can go work for a different company. Just once you make that first decision in your head, that the world is not going to come to an end. Yeah. If it doesn't work out, I have learned something new. I can go find something else. It's very freeing. It is risky. There is fear. Not every day is gloriously happy, but it's not, you don't have that pit in your stomach anymore. And Sunday nights should not be miserable nights. We've talked about this.
Sunday scaries.
Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, completely agree. We'll probably talk about this frequently. It's going to come up consistently through our conversations. We should probably wrap for this evening and move to our shots.
Ooh. 3 shots?
Our 3 shots. If I may go first, my shot is actually what I'm drinking tonight. So it's one and the same. But this is my plug for the Starbucks pumpkin latte. I know it may be weak, but here's the thing. Once a year, I do a pumpkin drink, and that was today.
You only get it once a year?
Why once a year?
Only once, because they are a little bit sweet, even though so this is a medium pumpkin latte with half the syrup. So it's half the sweetness. And I drank half of it and I put half of it in the refrigerator. So I'm drinking it chilled. So it's just as good cold as it is hot. But I don't know. I've just always made it kind of a once a year in the fall. This has been a glorious fall day in Minnesota. The leaves are peak. It just felt like today was the day.
Good. Mine's kind of funny. Mine is centered around Scotcheroos.
Oh.
So if you're not from the Midwest, you're going to have to Google Scotcheroos. If you are from the Midwest and make Scotcheroos, here's my tip to make them even better, and everyone will love them. So here's the tip. If you have a recipe, you want a cup less Rice Krispies in them, and you want like a half a cup more corn syrup and a little more peanut butter. That's the tip. So there you go.
Gooey.
Honestly, Stacey makes the best Scotcheroos ever. So
That's
if you
the
want
secret.
her recipe, leave a comment.
Yeah,
leave a comment.
I'll
And
give it.
Stacey will share her recipe.
Yep.
Won't you, Stacey?
Yes, I will.
And it also has to do with what you make it in and how you store it.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay. I have to admit, my shot thing got a little, I kind of didn't have one, but
It's okay.
But this is something that I'm going to take a shot at this week.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're clapping now. You're just going to go, oh, okay. All right. So I miss carving pumpkins.
Oh.
I miss carving pumpkins. That was always my deal. I organized that. The girls never said to me, Mom, are we going to carve pumpkins? I was always like, girls, we're going to carve pumpkins. So this week, yes.
Amy, I remember going to your apartment.
Prior
just
kids.
Post college days, going into your apartment to carve pumpkins.
I love carving pumpkins.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get at least one pumpkin. I'm kind of cooking up maybe 2, possibly 3. But here's what I'm going to do. I did this once with the girls a long time ago, but I'm going to take advantage of working on at a construction site where I've got crew that's there. So on my days off, I am going to clean out 3 pumpkins. I'm going to take them to work, and I'm going to get those guys to come down with a drill and round drill bits, and we're going to polka dot these suckers.
Oh my gosh.
And I've done that before, and it's so cool. So you get drill bits of different sizes. So you have little tiny ones and big ones, and you put circles in the whole thing, and it makes your whole pumpkin look like it's polka dots. And I thought it'd be really cool that I could have them at work because there are little kids in my neighborhood. And it's now dark by the time I leave that I could have those out. I think so. That's my thing. I'm going to do some pumpkins.
Love it. So
very cool.
We do have a Facebook page.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Cocktails In has a Facebook page. So I think that would be a good place for the recipe, for the pumpkins, and whatever else. So
yes. Yep. Good thought. Very good thought.
All right. So we will wrap for this evening. And again, we're just getting this podcast off the ground. We are only a few episodes in. So thank you to those of you who've been tuning in with us regularly every week. When you do pop over to our Facebook, again, brand new. So we're just starting to put content up. But we do hope that you'll come back every week for more addicting conversations with these 3. We love hanging out together. We also love feedback. So please comment with your thoughts, your own experiences, follow, and share, all of that good stuff. And until next time, ladies.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Wait, I'm not ready.
Oh,
here we go.
Okay.
Cheers. Okay.
Cheers.
Until next time.
All right. Woo. Look, I got that wow. Who wants some hands up right now? We got that, turn it up loud. I know you're wondering how. I got that wow. Here here I go coming. I can't ever stop, I'm a tour de force running. Get me to the top, I don't need an invitation. I'm about to start a celebration, let me in. Brought a good time plus some friends. Turn it up loud past 10. Turning up the crowd when I hit 'em.